Okay, the next part, countering Piaget's theory of cognitive development, there is also Vygotsky's theory of cognitive development. So we will begin the same way we did Piaget. We're going to start with Vygotsky's basic assumptions. And if you turn to page 37, that's where you'll find those. So it says, one of his basic assumptions says, through both informal conservations and formal schooling, adults convey to children the way in which their culture interprets and responds to the world. Vygotsky proposed that as adults interact with children, they share the meanings they attach to objects, events, and more generally human experience. Meanings are conveyed through a variety of mechanisms, including language, spoken words, writing, etc., mathematical symbols, art, music, and so on. So he also saw value in having adults pass along the discoveries of precious generations, and I think we're not doing enough of that. Now, with this being said, adults have a huge responsibility because children will say and do what we do. And I've seen this more times than I can count in the classroom and in school in general. I remember we had a little kindergartner who I was out in the hallway, and he was getting a drink at the water fountain, and I said, "Good morning." He said, "Good morning, a-hole." And I looked, because kindergartners sometimes the language issue, and so I leaned down and I smiled and I said, "Excuse me?" And he said, "I said good morning, a-hole." And I looked up at the teacher, who just smiled. And I'm thinking, what is going on? So I went in the office, stepped in the office, and I said, "Do we know that we have a kindergartner out here calling people a-holes?" And the principal was like, "Yeah, we're trying to talk to him about that." And I said, "Are we all okay with?" And she said, "No, but we've tried talking to Mom, and no results." So that afternoon, I happened to be out on bus duty when the mom came. And the principal leaned down in the car, and she said, "We've talked about Johnny calling people a-holes, and happened again today." And she turns around and smacks him over the seat and said, "I told you not to use that word at school." At school? All right, where does a kindergartner pick up those words and use it so fluently, I might add? So we have to be careful as the adults. The second assumption, every culture passes along physical and cognitive tools that make daily living more productive and efficient. It's also they also pass along specific tools that can help children tackle the various tasks and problems they're apt to face. In Vygotsky's view, acquiring tools that are at least partly symbolic or mental in nature greatly enhances growing children's thinking and functioning. So yes, our culture does play a part in the type of children that we are raising and how that they are affected. All right, the third one is thought and language become increasingly independent in the first few years of life. They will try to mimic anything that you put before them. On page 38, it says, "But sometime around age 2, thought and language become intertwined. Children begin to express their thoughts when they speak, and they begin to think in words." Now, when thought and language first merge, children often talk to themselves. Vygotsky suggested that self-talk serves as an important function in cognitive development, and by talking to themselves, children learn to guide and direct their own behaviors through difficult tasks and complex maneuvers in much the same way that adults have previously guided them. Self-talk eventually evolves into inner speech, in which children talk to themselves mentally rather than aloud. In other words, both self-talk and inner speech help children engage in self-regulations. So they can kind of talk, self-regulation, they can kind of talk themselves through problems. I don't know whether I've ever left this phase, or if this phase continues until you die, because I still sometimes talk myself through processes. I find I seem to be able to encourage myself every step of the way. The next one, complex mental processes begin as social activities and gradually evolve into internal mental activities that children can use independently. As children discover objects, events, tasks, and problems with adults and other knowledgeable individuals, they gradually incorporate into their own thinking the ways in which the people around them talk about and interpret the world, and they begin to use the words, concepts, symbols, and strategies, in essence, the cognitive tools that are commonly used in their culture. Over time, children gradually internalize adults' direction so that they are eventually giving themselves the directions by themselves. And then having arguments helps children discover that there are often several ways to view the same situation. I've found it raising 3 children when they have gotten into it from time to time and arguing. I do not run to their rescue. I want them to learn conflict resolution. How are they? Somebody's going to have to agree. Sometimes they're going to agree to disagree. Somebody's going to have to give in. Somebody's going to have to step up and take charge. But if we don't allow our children the opportunity to work through that, how will they ever learn? So once again, Vygotsky's view is society plays such a huge role, and I think he's right. I don't think that we realize how much it does play. The next one, children appropriate their culture's tools in their own idiosyncratic manner. Children don't necessarily internalize exactly what they see and hear in a social context. Rather, they often transform ideas, strategies, and other cognitive tools to suit their own needs. That's going to happen if nothing else, out of that egocentrism. It's all about what they need. So and there's an area you might want to remember. Children can accomplish more difficult tasks when assisted by more advanced and competent individuals. And I think you should find a link with Piaget right there. A child's actual development level is the upper limit of tasks that he or she can perform independently without help from someone else. A child level of potential development is the upper limit of tasks that he or she can perform with the assistance of more competent individuals. Vygotsky suggested we should assess their capabilities not only when performing alone, but also when performing with assistance. Vygotsky found that children can typically do more difficult things in collaboration with adults than they can do on their own. Go figure that. A reason we are in the classroom. They can play more difficult piano pieces when an adult helps them locate some of the notes on the keyboard or provide suggestions about which fingers to use. They can solve more difficult math problems when the teacher helps them identify critical problem components. Do you see the need to be teaching, not just sitting behind the desk coding the term teacher? It is being interactive and assisting them. Another assumption, challenging tasks promote maximum cognitive growth. The range of tasks that children cannot yet perform independently but can perform with the help and the guidance of others is Vygotsky's terminology, the zone of proximal development. I think you might find that's very closely linked to equilibration if you look back on equilibration or listen back over the notes. Vygotsky proposed that children learn very little from performing tasks they already can do independently. If they're already there, why bother? This can go... let me go ahead with the rest of this. Instead, they develop primarily by attempting tasks they can accomplish only with assistance and support. It's the challenge in life, not the easy successes, that promote cognitive development. It's the ones that push you out of your comfort zone, in other words. But whereas challenging tasks are beneficial, impossible tasks which children can't do even with considerable structure and guidance are of no benefit whatsoever, because if they're not ready to do that. For instance, the pizza example I gave you. It didn't matter if I fed them pizza 5 straight days. They were not ready for fractions. Vygotsky kind of has the same view. As teachers, then, we should assign some tasks that students can accomplish successfully only with other people's support. In some instances, adults or older this support must come from more skilled individuals, such as adults or older students. In other situations, students of equal ability can work together to jointly accomplish difficult assignments, perhaps PBL, you might think. Every student's zone of proximal development will change over time. It's just as they mature and they get to where they can handle more and understand more of the hypotheses and understand more of the theories, they're able to do more, bottom line. All right, and another one is another assumption, play allows children to stretch themselves cognitively. It saddens me that there is little playtime in kindergarten anymore because there's no time. There's too much time spent teaching the academics. We've even omitted recess at a lot of the schools, and everywhere you read, you find evidence and research to back up the fact that exercise helps the brain process information and can help material move into long-term memory more easily. In play, a child always behaves beyond his average age, above his daily behavior In play, in play, it is as though he were a head taller than himself. I remember having playtime at the preschool when I was working there, and how much fun. That's one of my favorite times, is seeing them